Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast.
Hello and welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we are going to discuss things an attorney wants their client to know, but may not always communicate. And Rhett, it's good to see you, and I see you have brought a very special guest.
Yes, Kevin. You know how you keep saying, Rhett, we've got to figure out some way to make you look better and more interesting. So this is Leslie Fisk. She's a lawyer in my office, works with me. She's probably one of the smartest, definitely smarter than me. And so I figured I'd bring her in here today and let her help me, since you know how much I struggle during these podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Let me share some of the things that we as lawyers have a hard time communicating to our clients, if that's okay with you.
That sounds fantastic. Leslie, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's dive in. Let's start with something, pretty integral. Honesty is very, very important. It's crucial. So can you talk a little bit about that, Rhett?
Yeah. So we have found as lawyers that our clients tend not to tell us exactly the whole story. And, as lawyers, as we're going through preparing our cases, we got to know everything, the good and the bad, because we cannot prepare properly if we don't know everything. And for whatever reason, it's kind of like going to the doctor. You go to the doctor, you don't tell the doctor the problems you're having, he can't give you the great diagnosis. Right. Likewise, as lawyers, if our clients don't tell us everything, then there's no way that we can properly prepare. And I tell you, it's nothing worse than getting in front of a judge or a jury and finding out some of the bad facts right then, because at that point in time, we can't recover. We can't soften it. We can't prepare for it. So if you're a client and you're coming in, you've got to tell your lawyer everything. Fortunately, we have attorney-client privilege. So even if it's bad information, does not necessarily mean that the other side will find out about it. Definitely means we can't tell them about it. But we need to know no matter what that bad fact may be.
And likewise, we will be honest with our clients as well. And sometimes when we give our honest opinion about the facts in the case and what we think possible outcomes would be, people are a little bit offended if it's not exactly what they want to hear. They might say, well, it sounds like you're not fighting for me. That's not at all the case. What we tell our client that they need to be aware of is very different than what we're going to be arguing in court, most likely. I mean, we're going to try to give you the best outcome possible. But not only is it our ethical duty to tell you the truth and what we think likely outcomes could be, but also you're paying us for an honest opinion. You're not paying us to sugarcoat the truth for you.
Right.
You want our honest opinion, and we want the honest facts from you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, if you can't be blindsided by your client with information because that doesn't help anybody. And then at the same time, if you have to be straightforward with your client as well, because they don't want to be blindsided either with like an outcome that seems way out of what you guys had told them they would get.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a practical example. As times change, what society wants changes. We've seen patterns. I've seen patterns since I started practicing. Lately, there's sort of a pattern that some parents want a 50-50 custody split with the children. And some people, this works great. Some people it doesn't. But sometimes people want us to fight for that in court. And while we are happy to fight for that, we owe a duty to our clients to tell them what the law says about that. And it would be a disservice if we said, absolutely, you're going to get that if we thought that the facts didn't support that outcome.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Kevin, it's amazing. I know Leslie will tell you the same thing. It's amazing how mad clients get when we tell them the truth sometimes. They want us. I don't know why it's like that. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. They'll say, it sounds like you're not fighting for me or you're not going to do what I want. And that's not at all the case.
Right.
But you don't want your doctor to, say, oh, your blood sugar will probably be okay if it's not. And if you need extra care, it's important to know reasonable outcomes. And we can also have a strategy, and we need to pair those two for the best outcome.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let's move on to number 2. And this is probably another one that may seem obvious, but needs to really be pushed out there. It can take time. Communication takes time.
And if I may bring in a medical parallel example again, if I want to talk to my doctor, it's very unlikely that I call the office and say, please put Dr. Black on the phone, because that doctor has appointment after appointment after appointment. And probably that doctor has some time set aside to answer questions that have come up on my chart. And there are nurses that I could talk to and give my same question to. Very similarly with attorneys. Attorneys often have trials, hearings back to back, meetings all day, mediations. It's very unlikely that we are just sitting in our office and available to take calls. That said, we really want to make sure that we answer all your questions. So we have systems in place to make sure that we do answer the questions. But just because the attorney is not available when you call does not mean that we do not care about your case.
And Kevin, to add to that, we do prioritize the calls we return, the messages we return. Everybody's needs are different. We have cases where it really is an emergency. A child has been taken out of state or has been abused. And then we have clients calling in July wanting to know what their visitation is supposed to be in December at Christmas time. So, we're going to look at what needs it to be dealt with first. Clients always want to have their call returned first. But we have to prioritize who we call first because things are very time sensitive. And it's not unusual for clients to get mad at us as lawyers because we've not returned their messages as soon as they want us to. And we understand that. We're consumers just like they are. We have other professionals we deal with and we want answers quickly as well. But we want our clients to know that just because we haven't responded to them doesn't mean that we're ignoring them. We just haven't been able to get to them yet. Or we're treating the other client, like the client who wants to be responded to, like they want to be treated because their matter really is more urgent.
Another example would be if I have a trial coming up. Trials are the pinnacle of the case in many cases, many situations. So I owe a responsibility to my client to prepare the best I can and to give all of my time and attention right before a trial to preparing for that trial. So let's say Miss Smith calls me while I'm preparing for Miss Apple's trial. Well, Miss Smith might be mad that I can't talk to her, but when it comes time to Miss Smith's trial, she's also going to want me to give my full time and attention to her trial.
Absolutely.
And so we are treating people with fairness and with respect, but it may not always feel like that to the person asking the questions because they don't know all the facts and circumstances.
Absolutely. Well, maybe, it would help if you didn't spend time talking to stupid podcasters too.
We take on all types of people, Kevin.
All right. So let's move on to number 3 here. Talk about how important preparation is.
I'm going to let Leslie hit this as well. When I hired Leslie, I knew she was one of these lawyers that was always prepared, overly prepared. She still gets overly prepared if there is such a thing, which is a great trait. So Leslie, talk about how preparation is the key.
I think the best attorneys are pessimists because we have to think about what's the worst thing that could happen when we go to court and how can I respond to it. So we're always anticipating what could happen.
Sure.
So I might be asking a client for a document that doesn't seem relevant to her at all, but I know there's a good chance the other side might bring up something and that document could be my response if they do that. So it may seem like we ask for a lot of documents, but there is a reason behind them. And I never mind if people say, why do I have to provide that? I never mind answering that question. But I promise you, we're not just doing it because we're bored or we need something else to do.
Because we love paperwork.
So if we're asking you for something, it really is important that we do that. I also appreciate, I just had this at a mediation this week where the client on her own came up with a list of things that she would really like out of mediation. And I appreciate that a lot. I mean, for some people, it helps them put their thoughts into paper. And so if that makes you feel better, please do that. I certainly take lots of notes and think ahead about every event in someone's case about what we need. And I appreciate when other people do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a question we get a lot from clients, they'll say, what do you need from us? Well, we don't know all the facts that you know, and we don't have all the documents that you have. So until we see and hear what our client has, it's hard for us to tell them whether the evidence they have is great or bad. So we need to know everything so we can prepare the best case scenario, because in any trial, any case, preparation is the key to everything. So yeah, we do take our time with that.
For example, one of the things we often ask for is a calendar. If this is a custody dispute between mom and dad, for example, show us what the patterns have been. Who's the kid spending the night with? Who is asking for visits and not getting them? That kind of calendar gives us a visual to see the entire picture, which can help the case in many ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I suppose a question you probably get about, hey, what's this going to cost? The cost, you can kind of predict it, but you're not fortune tellers either.
Yeah. So we can tell you that any type of case can turn out to be very expensive because we can't predict how the other side is going to behave or act. It's not uncommon for clients to say, what's taking so long and why is this costing so much? Well,
Right.
It could be because you're going through the divorce. And if you and your spouse thought along the same lines and agreed with everything, you probably wouldn't be going through a divorce. So time is everything in our cases. And your clients demand us to be aggressive. They demand us to be prepared. They demand our time, which is great. We expect that, but that does equate to money. So these cases aren't cheap. We can predict within a reasonable range what a case will cost, but it's very difficult to decide to figure out how the other side is going to act. And if you have an unreasonable person on the other side won't agree to anything, it can drive up a case quickly.
Yeah. Most of family court cases eventually settle, but usually there has to be some pretty litigious fighting in the beginning before people have attitude adjustments and realize where things are headed. At that point, usually things calm down a little bit, and by the end, it's very likely they'll reach an agreement. But when you're in the middle of that aggressive arguing, it's important that we fight for you to give you the best outcome, which will eventually impact the outcome at the end. And there are also a few things that we can do to try to help keep costs low, not all the time. But if you let us know, hey, my money's really tight right now, anything you can do to keep it lower, I'd really appreciate. That may or may not impact who we suggest as a mediator, for example. There could be some less expensive than others. Also, something that can drive up the cost are people who call all the time and demand to talk to the attorney. Talking to a paralegal will be less impact on your bill than talking to an attorney. Sending messages, even less impact. So there are a few things that we can talk with you about to help lower expenses. That said, you still need quality representation, and that does take time, and time is money.
Yeah. This may seem a little harsh. We get it. Clients are going through a hard time, but we're not mental health counselors. We're not therapists. And we'll do our best to help walk you through the process. We understand that there's an overlap there with what we have to do, but when you call us, have your questions ready. When you talk to us in person, let's try to stay in with the facts of the case and what we're trying to accomplish. We don't need 30 years of history. If we do cut
you don't need
off,
a narrative form. You just need to know the facts. Yeah.
Right. And if we cut a client off and direct them in another direction, that's because we're trying to get to the point that we as attorneys need to hear, and it does help save our clients money as well.
That's true. And we do strongly recommend that people going through litigation of any kind do consider getting therapy, because it does impact all parts of your life. And those professionals are equipped to help you work through the mental and psychological effects of litigation.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thank you for tuning in to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney and special guest Leslie Fisk. For more information or to connect with the office over there, you can visit rhettburney.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and leave us a review in the comments. Rhett, Leslie, it was great chatting with you guys. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.